All right, today we're going to work on our acorn, and you're going to be doing this part in pencil, but I'm going to show you in marker so that we don't get too confused. I'm going to go in blue, and I'll show you the outline of the acorn first. So I'm working on kind of a small piece of paper, but what we're going to do is come up, skip a little, and come back down. So we'll make the cap of our acorn, and we're not going to, I guess in pencil we can add this bottom part, but we're not going to do that one in pen. All right, and then up here at the top, we can make our little stem, and then at the bottom of the stem, I'm going to dip down a bit. Now in pencil, for the outline of our acorn, we're just going to come down. Whoops, sorry, that's not very bright. We're going to come down, and we're going to come down here. And then I want this part to be curved, so it doesn't have to be super pokey. And then for the area where we're going to add the pattern in the top of our acorn, I want you to turn at a 90-degree angle. And we're going to make a grid, and it's going to be sort of big. These aren't going to be little tiny grid, just wherever you don't already have a line. So we're going to go diagonally there, and then we'll turn it the other way to where these are squares, but they are set sideways. So we'll add a wide pattern there. And everything else we do can be in marker. So we're going to work in two patterns today. So switch to your black marker. The first pattern is called Fluke. And this one's pretty simple. In each of these places, we can go ahead in our marker and outline our little stem. So that's fine. We can outline our stem. We're going to start with the top ones here though. And wherever we have these little squares, let's outline them. But we're going to do the top row first because at the bottom, we're just going to curve. See how that's a curve? It's not a point. And then we'll move to the next layer. And we're going to start a little bit above that curve. And we'll come down and go back up to a little bit above that curve, and that's going to give everything sort of an overlapping feeling. So this is just, we're going to come out and we'll curve at the bottom of that and hit this just on the side of that curve. So we're not doing an exact waffle pattern there. We're making it more of an overlapping, sort of almost like scales. And then we can keep doing that. So we don't start right at the point, and we'll go back up. Same here. We're not going to start right at the point. And see how that starts looking like they're overlapping. And then when we get to the bottom, our bottom row here, I'll show you what we're going to do, because we do want it to look like this is over. Oh no, I forgot to do this one. We do want it to look like they're kind of overlapping the bottom of the acorn. So I'm going to add one more here. And then I guess I got out of order here, but that's all right. I'm just going to make it work. And once we get here, then I'm going to make these a little smaller. So we kind of have a finished edge here. So this one's just going to be a little bit smaller. There we go. So that's our top portion. Then what we will do in each of these, at the tip here, we're going to make some little lines like this. So we'll do that on each of these little tips. Try not to go further up than about halfway, because we're also going to do some pattern up there at the top. But this kind of gives it that, it's an interesting little scaly look, and you can turn it the other way if that's easier for you. It might be easier for me. Let's see. Oh yeah, I think I like that better. It's 2s. All right, so I'm just adding these little fun little fireworks at the edge of each of my little scales. And here where I didn't overlap, I can kind of just fix it now. So when you have a little oopsie, you can usually make it work coming back in later. All right, did I get all of them? I think I got all of them. All right, so now let's do something at the top of each of these. So I'm going to start with one that's kind of big, and I'm going to go this way across that edge, and then I'm going to come down to this edge and go back over here this way and come back down. And I'll add one more there because I have room. Wherever you feel like you have room. If you don't want to add more, you don't have to. But we'll do that to each of those little sections. So that's kind of fun. So I'm always starting this way. I'm always starting left to right. And then I'll keep adding my little pattern until I feel like I've run out of space. There we go. So we'll do that in each of those. And then I'll show you how to shade this after a while. But for now, let's just add some more shapes. There we go. So we'll do that to all of them. But I'm going to come down and show you this perk pattern that we're going to add to the bottom. First of all, we have this, it's kind of like a border here that comes down, but you're going to draw behind any of those little top pieces that are already there. So that is the first one. Ooh, pardon me. And it kind of comes out and around. So it's going to come out and around like that to make those edges a little bit curvy. And then we'll go down and make another little edge. Oh, you know what? That was a mistake. Never mind. Well, if you did it, we'll fix it. Don't worry. All right. So I have enough room for about 3 sections of this round business in here. So I'm going to go a little bit down and I'm going to make another one of those that comes up. And can you see how it curves around at the edges? I want to make sure that you do that. So then there's going to be one below it that also kind of curves up and around. And then I can add one more. So I'm going to add one more down here that goes up and around. And then one just below it. Great. All right. Now we're going to pick the center of these sections and we're going to make an oval in each of the centers, just like this. So there's a nice little oval, and we're going to try to keep them in line. And because we have this pencil, we know where the kind of the bottom of our acorn is going to be. Now that we have those circles, let's put, well, they're not circles. Who are we kidding? Let's put an oval on the right side of each of these, and we just want to brush these boundaries around. It doesn't have to be the same size, but if it is, that's all right too. So then we'll put one on the left of each of them, just filling that space. And then I'll keep going. So I'll do them down this side. And we're getting kind of close here. So it's okay if they go outside the boundary of that pencil that you added. We don't need to worry about that. And then I'm going to come over and add here And you know, sometimes they're not perfect ovals, but that's the way of the world. Pardon me, I am allergy lady this morning. So then we have kind of everything centered, and we can go here and we can say, all right, we have one here. As we get to this edge though, it's gonna get a little skinnier, and it's hanging off the side of the edge. If you can see how that's working, like this one is hanging off the side a little bit as well. What can we fit in over here? All right, so I've got that one. And then I'm also gonna fit one over here. And I think I can fit another one, but it is gonna be hanging off the edge just a little bit. And same over here, this one's hanging off the edge. The last pattern we're gonna add is, oh no, I forgot these ones. Okay, so they get one here and one here that's hanging off the edge a little bit. Now, in these sections here, we're going to add some very small circles, simply all the way across. Fill this area with the circle, and you can make it the full height of that banner piece. What we'll end up doing is coloring all of these intermediate spaces in with our black marker. So my objective is to make this really fill this little banner space. And you could always do these if you are tired of orbs. You could do it in squares or triangles. It's not important that it be circles. And then same thing, you can hang over your little edge a little bit. But then wherever that banner was, let's kind of enclose it. There we go. And we'll do the same thing over here on the other side. So I need to add another little circle so I can enclose that banner. There we go. Then we'll do the same thing here. So I'm going to start in the middle, work my way outward. And you can see that these are not really perfect circles, but that's okay. I did not turn the volume down on my computer when I closed it, and keep having the little messages come through. Sorry if that is bothering you. So let's do these circles. And again, if you have one kind of hanging off, that's all right. And then we'll fill in that banner. And on the other side, I'm going to fill in this banner. We already did that up there. Alrighty. So what my problem is, I did 2 lines up here and I didn't mean to. These were supposed to be the little orbs, but I'm gonna just make it work because that's what it's all about. When I add my shading and everything here, I think we'll be able to cover up my mistake line. So that'll be good. Okay, so that's the one that's kind of hidden behind the top. I'm not going to worry about it at all. Let's go back to the top. I'm going to continue making these little fun, and I can't quite fit as many in here because I made those too tall. Okay, so this one can come up and over and over. This one up, down, up, down, up, down. It might have been wiser for me to wait to make all those little whiskery shapes, huh? But that's part of what we do when we Zentangle. We're kind of figuring out how to solve all these little problems as we go. So let's go up, down, up, down, up, down, up, up, down. And then over here where we can't see the whole pattern, it's still all right. We can just wing it. We can just figure where it might be. And I like to start these lines, like I don't want to start this one right where that one is, so maybe I'll make it a little thinner. And then over here, This is going to look so cool when we shade it. I'm very excited about it. It's so rainy and dreary at my house today, and I can't think of anything I'd rather be doing than just showing you how to draw something that's so calming, so cute, so fall. All right. I'm doing this as we come upon Thanksgiving week. Here, if you are somewhere else than America, you may not be celebrating American Thanksgiving, but we like it. And I live in Texas, so we don't have, oh no, what did I do there? Oh, it doesn't matter because we can't see that whole thing. I live in Texas, so this is kind of our official start to fall. Now, down here at the bottom, we're going to color in, let's see, I think I can fit another orb there. Ha 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 ha. All right, we're going to color in all these little in-between spaces here. So all of this is getting colored in black. Everything in between all these circles and all these orbs is going to be colored in dark. I could have another orb there, but these are all going to be dark spaces. So we can color all those in. This is the time of year when it starts getting cold where I live. So it's been cold and rainy for a few days. Well, it was cold and rainy one day. Then it was cool and sunny the next day, and then today it's cold and rainy again. This time of year where I live, it's usually either just very beautiful weather or what I like to call very snuggly weather, because it makes me want to put on cozy clothes and nice thick socks and snuggle up on the couch with my puppy dogs, be warm, have a cup of hot tea, let it just steam and warm my hands up. That's what it makes me think of. I don't know what this time of year makes you think of. It might be different where you live, but that is what's going on here. And so over here where this one kind of hangs off, I'm sort of just going to make up the boundary. And I'm going to let it hang off, but I'm also going to sort of color in that background. I don't think there's a wrong way to do this. And I'm going to continue turning my paper when it's easier for my hand to approach this from a different angle. Turning that paper, just doing my thing. If you live in my area and it's fall, so it's late November or maybe mid-November as I'm recording this. So if you live in my area, you might have woken up today and thought, oh, I don't want to do anything. It's too cold to do anything. One of those days where it feels like all day long, it feels like it's morning because it never really gets light because it's sort of rainy outside. The sky is a little bit dark. That to me is just very, very cozy weather. So I like to call it snuggly weather. Whether you are snuggling with another person or a kitty cat or a good book, maybe your favorite movie, maybe your art supplies. I am glad that you chose to spend a little bit of time today for yourself to do this. Making art and letting ourselves sit and do something enjoyable, even when it's a little bit challenging, like this can be, it's always a really good idea. It's kind of like taking your brain to the creative spa where you have some time to work on a piece that isn't really, it's not for a grade, it's not for a contest. When you do things like this for you, let it be a time for you to try things, to explore things. Maybe your hand is crampy with your paper in one direction. Try drawing from a different direction. Maybe try holding your pen up higher and just being a little looser with your strokes of the pen. I find that if I hold my pen down here, I have better control of it, maybe, but I also tend to grip it a little bit tighter, which can cause some tension in my shoulder. So sometimes if I back up and I hold it back here, it's a little less tension through my shoulder. I don't feel like I have exactly the same control, but I think that is all right. Okay, the only thing left for us to do is add a few little stripes in the top of this acorn. And I only added 2. You don't need to add a lot up there because we're gonna shade them. So I am done with my pen and I'm going back to my pencil. And there are some other things we can do up here if we want to kind of make it look more overlappy and more shady. But for this particular one, I'm gonna go a little simpler. So I'm gonna start with my pencil, and you can use any kind of pencil you have. It doesn't have to be, there's no specific type of pencil. The first thing I'm gonna do is just color a thick line over these 2 lines I made in the stem. And I'm gonna come back and shade everything in a little bit, like I'm gonna blend it out. So I'll show you how to make a blending stick if you don't have those. Most people don't. And then what I wanna do is under each of these points, I wanna make a little shading also. So under each point, so I just need to find a point and I'm gonna shade that next thing underneath it. So these up here would be different because we're gonna shade underneath the stump. There we go. So we'll shade under that stump. And then let's see, there's a point here. So we'll shade down into that next little shape. There's a point here. So we'll shade down into the next shape. And there's a point here. So let's shade down into our next shape. Same here. And let's see, same here. All right, oh, I missed one. Sometimes you miss one, but you can always add that shading. All right, I think that's all of them because we're not shading down here quite yet. Oh, and now let's shade around this side. So in each of them, you're also gonna shade down the side where you made that first one. So kind of like this. And then we can add some shade to these ones over here that didn't really have one above it, right? There we go. Remember to breathe. Sometimes you can forget to breathe. Isn't that funny to think that we would forget to breathe? But you get to concentrating so hard on doing this, and maybe you do forget a little bit to breathe. So remember to take some deep breaths. Remember that this is a lovely, relaxing thing we're doing. And that's what we want. So we're going to shade here too. Anywhere we have that first piece, let's shade there. And shade there. All right. Then we can think later, all right, where else should we shade? This is going to be the light part. So let's shade from here down So we'll find all that, like that first edge of our little shape, and shade downward. This is getting too confusing. Do not worry. Find the top of that, like when we made that square, just find the top two edges and shade down one or two, like so. So I'm going to find that top edge, that big one, and shade down a little bit. There we go. Oh, there's one. It's funny because you skip over them. I do that too. So that one, I got all of these. Oh, I didn't get this one. Okay. Let's get that one. Let's get this one. This one. This one. And this little one here. All right. So I think I got all of those, so we're good. Okay. Then we're going to go down to our big orbs. We're going to start, let's start over here. If you're a lefty, you might want to start over here so you don't drag over your pencil. So I'm going to start, and I'm not trying to color into the paper in a way that it, like my pencil dents the paper. I'm trying to just lay down some graphite, maybe is a good way to say it. But I'm going to shade about like a third of the way over in each of these orbs. Maybe a quarter, a third of the way. Anyway, I'm going up and down in an up and down motion, almost in the, maybe in the shape of like a C, but I want to shade the little crescent edge of all of these. And sometimes we have, some of our pencils are harder than other pencils, so I try to make sure I find a pencil that I feel like has sort of soft lead. This one's great, but I know we all have just what's available. So if your lead is a little bit harder or not as dark, you may have to press harder. But if you can find a pencil that is a little softer, that would be ideal. But you can still do it with other pencils. So we're going to color just half. Oh, I'm sorry, just like a third or a fourth, because when we blend, we'll have a lot of stuff just stuck on whatever we're blending with. So we often don't need as much pencil on the paper as we eventually want. So what's happening here that's kind of nice is those pencil lines I had down before, where I was demonstrating for you, are getting kind of just enveloped in all this. On these, I am going to shade nice and dark along the bottom edge, which is going to help me with that line that I accidentally put in there that I didn't mean to add. So I'm going to shade really dark along the bottom of these, and I'll do it here as well. And this can just be in a line. It can go straight in a line. It doesn't have to be only in the orbs, because we're going to shade that whole banner. And I'm going about a third of the way up on these as well. And I can have that nice hard edge line there at the bottom. It's totally fine. And the last place we're going to shade, because this is the edge, so everything under here would be kind of dark. And it doesn't have to be straight across, but everything under these last edges would be sort of dark. So let's shade there, and here, and here. So that gives us that. And we will begin our blending. So I'm going to show you how to make a blending stick. If like roll this up kind of small. You could use a napkin. You could use, if you have some toilet paper, I think that would work as well. Tissue paper. Just a softer paper. Okay, so same thing. I'm going to smush it so it's flat. And then I'm going to bend it so that I have this little corner. So let's see if this works better. Yeah, that's nicer. Okay, paper towels for the win. And then we're going to smooth that on down. So we've got that done. And you can keep kind of smashing it There are blending sticks, but I know a lot of you don't have those, so I'm just going to show you how to do it with this. And in each of these places where we added pencil, I'm going to slowly just smooth it down. So I'm going to stay away from that white area there, and I'm just going to smooth this down. So you can see how that's kind of bringing the shade at the top of those shapes. So in each one, I'll smooth down, and you can go in any order you want, but I think I'm going to do all the ones on the left first and just smooth that on down. Smudge it into the middle. Smudgy smudge. Smudgy smudge. Oops, sorry, I'm drifting out of the camera on you. So I'm going to bring all this stuff from the left down. And once I've got all the left ones done, I'll move over to the right. There we go. Now I'll twist my paper and I'll do the right sides. And I'm trying not to touch my paper where I don't want it smudged with this paper towel. All right, I think at this point I have all of that pencil smudged, right? If we see anywhere later, we can always go back in and get rid of it. So you can see how that's already adding some dimension to that shape at the top. Now we're gonna go smudge. So there's a lot of shade on this top little banner area. So they don't have a lot of dimension because they're kind of being covered by the stuff at the top. But when we come down into these, all I really want you to do is try to smudge that bottom line. You don't have to bring it up real high on these. Just kind of smudge that bottom line up into the middle, and it's going to do exactly what we need it to do. Same thing on this one. You just want to smudge that line up into the middle. And now this is getting a little flat and a little smushy. Oh, I found one I missed. All right, so I'm going to open it up, turn it over, and then we have, it still has smudge on it. Wow, this one didn't corner out very well. All right, so I'm gonna make myself a new corner for the next step, which is going to be blend out each of these. What I'm trying to make sure I do is leave some white on that edge. I don't want to blend the whole thing all the way across. I want it to have a little bit of dimension to it. So I'm going to just, I'm hoping you can see this and I'm not covering it with my hand. So you want to leave a little bit of white on each side. Well, on each of those sides. And in areas like over here where I accidentally blended outside, I can bring my eraser in and get rid of that, because sometimes that happens. And I don't want shade where my object isn't, right? That wouldn't make any sense. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to come through all of these little orbs and kind of shade it about halfway across. And this isn't a super precision maneuver, but if you are finding great joy in the shading, you can take as long as you want to do this. What you want to do is anywhere it looks like the pencil hit the page, like where you have a pencil mark, you just want to smudge that down. And if you've got kind of a big edge on this and you're running over into the next orb, again, we can go back and deal with that with our eraser. So I'm going to keep doing the same thing. I'm just going to smudge all those little orbs. Smudgy, smudgy, smudgy. And I'm getting a little flat, so I can even I can unroll this a little bit, smush it back down, and give myself a new surface. Especially to get in those smaller areas. And then I'll get to these little bitty ones over here. And you don't have to be super precise with your little bitty one shading. That can be more difficult. As long as they all look similar, I think we're fine. All right, so we can stop here if we want. This is great, this is fun. Or we can even add shade to this whole edge. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna come to this very edge and I'm gonna put some darker shade on it. Like this is the dark side of the acorn. And even though we already shaded stuff and we already blended it out, still cool to come in and put a little more shade. So I'm gonna shade this side with my pencil, and I'm not going halfway across. I'm not even really going a third. This is probably a little less than a quarter of the way across, and it's like a crescent moon, like a C shape, because this is a round thing. And I'm going to come down to that bottom, and then I'll get my little shady blender, smudge all this pencil really nicely that's over here. Let's get it good and smudgy. And then I'll blend it outward a little bit like this. And I don't really want to cross that halfway point, but I just want to smudge to where that side is definitely darker. And then if you run over the edge, you can just bring your eraser right back and get rid of those smudges. I don't think there's anything illegal about that, especially if you're not working with the actual art supplies you need. Sometimes you don't have a blending stick. That's kind of a random art supply to have if you weren't sure. But then, look how cool and three-dimensional that looks. And if you want to come back in with your eraser and give these some highlights, like really up here on this top right edge, you can erase a little bit and give them some highlights, and that'll bring it even more 3D. This is traditionally in Zentangle is done with a white, like a white chalk pen, but again, or a chalk pencil or a white pastel, but I know all of you may not have those. I was working with one person and we tried it. I said, go see if you have any white eyeshadow anywhere. And she was able to find some. And so she used white eyeshadow. But there we are. That's the finished product. And if you find any other spaces that you feel like you might want to shade, like I'm looking at these, thinking it would be kind of cool to shade down here in these little areas. So maybe I'm going to do that. You don't have to. If you like the way it looks and you're finished, you don't have to add this. But now that I'm doing, I'm wondering, what will it look like if I try this? Will it give it more shade? Will it give it more depth? So I'm just going to go down from the peak of each of those. And over here it's already dark, but I can still darken that if I want to. So did I get all my peaks? I did. So I'm gonna return. I'm gonna undo this, and I'm gonna fold it over some different ways so I can find a clean space on my homemade blending stick. There we go. So you can just keep kind of blending. That's a creative problem to solve too. All right, so I'm gonna just smudge these little spaces at the top and see what happens. This maybe wasn't a necessary step, but that's what this art is about. This art is to help you. When I do the art, it's to help you see my process, but it's also can be very exploratory. We can try different things. There's really no consequence if this doesn't turn out super perfectly awesome. It's still okay because I got to try something in my creative way to see what would happen. I kind of like that. I kind of like that a lot. And then I think I'm going to take my eraser and brighten these little tiny bottom sections. Oh yeah, I like that. I'm glad I did that. Okay. So I'm not trying to get rid of all the shade completely, especially over here on the edge where it's super shady, but I do kind of like the way that looks. So I think I'm done here. You could always add something to the outside. Again, this pattern is called Fluke, and you can do it a lot of different ways. This pattern is called Perk, but I like the way this really looks like it stands off the page. You could do any number of things to the outside if you wanted to add some leafy shapes, if you wanted to just color in the edge. But I think I'm going to be done, so I'm going to add my little, this is my Zentangle signature. It's called a chop. It's like what potters do on the bottom of their pieces. But mine is a K for Kasey. And then I like to put a little heart in there. So that is done. I may add some things later, haha, but that's going to be up to me. So I can't wait to see if you're able to share. I can't wait to see what yours looks like, but I think this is a really fun and creative way to do an acorn. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful time, and congratulations on taking this time for yourself. Way to go.